When dealing with landscape photography, especially greenscapes or mountain ranges, one of the best kept secrets in editing is dodging and burning. And dodging and burning is the art of highlighting and darkening certain parts of the image in order to make your subject more prominent. So let's take a look at how we can do this in a few simple steps in Lightroom Classic. So as always, I've gone ahead and imported the image I will be working with today in this tutorial. And as you can see in this image, there's this really nice landscape in front of us with a very nice mountain range, a lot of colors actually. And there's sort of a flat foreground and also a very flat sky, which is very bright, and the foreground is sort of, although there's this road leading towards these mountains, there's really no sense of focal point in this image. So our aim today will be to use dodge and burn in order to create a more interesting image that leads us directly towards our subject. And in order to do this, I'm going to start off by doing some basic adjustments. First and foremost, I'm going to increase the exposure slightly, and I will be doing this literally to expose more details in the shadows. And then I'm going to reduce highlights completely to reveal more detail in the sky. And I'm going to also increase the shadows just very slightly, once again to reveal more details in those shadow areas. We will be obviously burning some shadow areas in order to create that dodging and burning effect. In terms of basic editing, I would say that the only thing I would do to this image would be to increase the clarity just slightly. And increasing the clarity right here, as you can see, creates a bit more contrast between the highlights and the shadow areas already. So now I'm going to do a few local adjustments, and I'm going to start immediately by using a linear gradient. On my sky, I'm going to increase the haze just slightly, and then I'm going to reduce my blacks and once again reduce my highlights. I can reduce the exposure slightly as well to create even more drama in the sky. Now, I will create yet another mask. This time I'm going to be using the brush mask. And now I'm going to start by literally burning some areas, so darkening some of my areas. So let me just show you how much of a difference this burning technique will make. So I'm going to reduce exposure by, let's say, -1, and then wherever I brush, as you can see, gets darkened. So I'm going to undo this, but I'm going to recreate that brush, -1, and I'm going to start brushing a few of my areas. Reduce the flow and density just slightly. I'm going to start brushing right here where there are the dark parts in my image. There's no need to be precise, and I will speed through this process in order not to bore you. I'm going to also paint these areas at the side of the road because I want the image to lead me towards the subject itself. So at this stage I can paint really roughly here, and I would like to also darken this area right here, and this part of the image I would like to darken a bit more actually. So I'm going to increase my flow and density, and I'm going to paint freely over this area. Alright, so we can paint over the dark areas on the side as well. Now next we can move over to dodging. So let's go ahead and create a brush mask. We'll leave the show overlay setting enabled to be able to see where we're painting. And I'm going to first and foremost start brushing the sides of the road. These brush strokes which lead directly towards the road, which is in theory also leading towards the subject. So we can also paint this area slightly, and then we can start painting over the slopes of the mountain range. I'm going to speed through this process once again in order not to bore you. And once my selection has been done completely and I'm happy with the result of the selection, I can start changing a few settings in order to emphasize the highlights in the image. So I'm going to start by increasing the exposure, but this time, since I actually painted over the areas which are bright and those areas are actually quite colorful in this image, I'm going to also increase my saturation quite a bit. And I'm going to reduce the shadows and increase the whites here. And as you can see, if we toggle this mask on or off, we have brightened the parts of the image which actually are most prominent. We can also play around with the amount slider in order to make the effect deeper. And I think we actually need to increase it just slightly, like so. And we can also play around with the temperature and tint to make sure we're actually extracting the right amount of colors. And as you can see, now we have a much more dramatic scene. Now, last but not least, I will create yet another linear gradient. This time I'm going to be selecting the bottom part of the image, literally the road leading towards the subject, and I'm going to reduce exposure as much as possible, reduce blacks and shadows, and make sure that I have no focal points, no bright areas in the bottom part of the image in order to lead my eyes directly towards the subject. If we don't overdo this, we can even go to the lens correction panel. We can go to the manual tab and increase some vignette as well right here. Last but not least, I'm going to increase the contrast slightly on the overall image, and I'm going to also increase the vibrance to create a much more vibrant effect. Now let's see the difference between the image that we started with and the image that we edited right now. And as you can see, we have a much better looking image where your eyes immediately go towards the mountains and you can immediately focus on the subject itself, whereas the previous image was a bit flat and you had no subject at all. So I really hope you found this tutorial interesting, and I hope you can apply this technique to your landscape photographs. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching as always.